One of the things that attracted me to the whole project was the compression of time. One night, 6:04 p.m. to 4:20 a.m. Everything's changing.
What's going with my work?
This is a collision of two lives. All you have been and who you think you might be all collapsed in the events of one night.
The movie starts with Vincent arriving to LA. Here he is, this guy who just looks perfect. Silver Foxx coming in the airport.
Enjoy LA.
More serious, deep current that's there within Tom Cruise is something I wanted to see, and particularly as it emerges through the exterior and we rapidly take in the rougher aspects of this character.
Michael, he came up with the whole design of the character. The hair, the beard, the suit. His eye is incredible, and it's always about his movie, the story, the characters.
Since when was any of this negotiable?
Some people happen to people on purpose in order to tell them something about their lives.
Are we taking bets?
Are we? May sit somewhere and share 2 or 3 lines, and then you leave, and you know your life has changed.
What if you're wrong?
I don't think I'm gonna be wrong, but if I am, the ride's free.
One of the themes is how people's paths cross. The interesting dynamic of meeting someone that you never thought could affect you in such a substantial way in a cab. In case you ever want to argue cab routes.
Hey.
It's a very chance situation. Tom comes down and says, are you busy, are you taken, you know, and Jamie's thinking about something else, and Tom starts walking off, and Jamie says, no, wait, you know.
I didn't hear you, man, come on.
To me, that's kind of true to life, because it's those little, nothing decisions that we make sometimes that can totally change the course of our lives.
How long do you think this would take?
7 minutes.
7. Not 8, not 6.
When Max first meets Vincent, it's who cares? I just saw the woman of my dreams. I'm getting married in my mind right now. Michael says, I want you to disconnect so that when you guys do connect, it's like day and night.
Listen, I'm in town on a real estate deal. Closing one night. I got 5 stops to make. Collect signatures, see some friends, and then I got a 6 a.m. out of LAX. Why don't you hang with me?
It's not until the offering of the money that you see them really connect.
I'll make it 600.
Cool. We got a deal. Here's 300 down. What's your name?
Max.
Max. I'm Vincent. Michael was so thorough in his history of Vincent that it very much informed where to start with the character. I'd sit down and have meetings with him, and he was, showed me pictures of where the character came from and things like that. That's the stuff I usually do as an actor.
We spent about 2 or 3 months building up the character of Vincent. What Vincent was doing when he was 2, what Vincent was doing when he was 11. Tom and I had a complete understanding of what Vincent is thinking for every single moment and how it resonates with something in his life growing up in Gary, Indiana, with a mother who died in childbirth, delivering him, and a series of foster homes, none of which is part of the text of this motion picture. But all of it is apparent in what Tom's doing in the whole of the movie.
As an actor, you spend months getting into the zone to a point where you can just be the character. Michael creates that environment, and then as an actor, you just have to be able to keep creating that character.
I'm a big believer in whatever the central activity that a character is supposed to do in his life, that an actor should be able to do it, to really understand it and understand the character. So I designed a program, and I used somebody that I also used in Heat, McGould.
It's important that we look every time.
He's ex-SAS, British Special Air Service, and kind of an expert in close-quarter combat with the kind of training he would have had if he had spent, 8 to 12 years in Special Forces.
Blanks. Because actors use blank guns, then they pretend to feel like what happens when it actually goes off, and it's a whole different deal. I mean, once you cock that weapon and there's a live round inside there, and you suddenly put it down your trousers and you go, wow.
I mean, you hit somebody right in here, they're down and out. You hit somebody right down in here, they're in deep shit.
Went left to right, went back, left to right. Yeah, but that guy seemed pretty down today. And that guy was still twisting. That guy was still twisting around. I saw him reaching for his gun. Gave me one of those cross-eyed looks. I said,
Yeah, we were using live ammo. It was great. The training on this, building this character from the ground up, really added a dimension. This is what he does. He just does it. It's an extension of who he is.
And for the actor then, when he's on a set and he's firing blanks, he does not firing blanks in his mind. He's firing live ammunition. This is really happening.
Yo, homie. That my briefcase?
There's a scene in which two people assault Vincent, not realizing who they're assaulting, and Vincent draws and shoots both of these guys. And it's in 1.3 seconds.
I mean, you want to back off, yeah? We got it. He had to be from Mr. Nice Guy to the extreme of aggression at the snap of a finger. That's difficult. So it did actually take 3 months to get that flip over.
The real value of it is what it does to the actor believing in himself.
Crowd's not here now.
And it projects in a much deeper way into character. He can become very quiet. And we will look at the screen and we will feel that man is totally in command.
He's a quick draw. I'm here to tell you right now, Tom Cruise is a quick draw. If he'd have been in the Old West, he'd had some notches on his belt. The man is fast.
As an assassin, you must be economical in your moves. The fight scenes were choreographed even months ahead of time, and we just keep working them.
Let's make a note that I like it without the punches better. I like it better with the open hand.
This way. Yeah.
And so everything that Tom does in the picture, that's not stunt work. Tom did it all for real. Of course, there are no cuts in it. We've been doing it for the last 3 months every morning.
We worked with him every day for weeks, and he was always there. He would work out for an hour prior, stretch and warm up. And he was so diligent about, if I'm not doing something right, tell me. If his leg was 1/4 of an inch off a mark while we're working out a fight sequence, he wants to know, is everything perfect? It almost is like a dance. Every move has to be balanced. As you go through the scene, he's not focused on these bodyguards and the people he's got to take out. He's got a vision. He's got a vision 200 feet away, and he's got to look like it's all automatic response, and he's always in charge of the situation.
And with Jamie, it was a different thing. Who drives a cab? What kind of people are they? What do they wear? How do they look?
The first time I started, so where you from? I was doing this because, you think that's the way you drive the cab. He's like, quit turning the steering wheel like that.
If you drive a cab 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, year after year after year, you get to be a pretty good driver. You know how to pass people on the right. You know how to turn. It's kind of the basics of race car training. And we just did that, except with a Crown Vic out of Willow Springs Racetrack.
Let's ride out. Glasses up.
So we go out and we race, and I'm like, man, what are we racing? He says, I want you to have the feel of the cab to where it's natural, to where it's not acted. When it came to the stunts, he wanted me to be comfortable with the car going fast and how it moves and how it turns and everything like that. That's his method. We had a great time at the track. At the same time, we got a little bit of the DNA for, the character Max.
I drove a cab, my brother drove a cab, my grandfather, Sam Mann, started a small cab company. I mean, I've grown up around the cab business and the independence of cab drivers.
One Sunday morning, the guy said, "Oh man, I give up $100 for a beer." I drove him to some gas station and came out with a six-pack. He says, "Can I have $600, please?" He gave it to me.
This is the cleanest cab I've ever been in. You ready to ride?
Yeah, I share it with the day shift guy.
You start out early in the morning, you drive the car until you get your money.
Okay, see, that's the difference thing I was gonna say. I don't drive daytime.
Because you prefer nights?
Yeah, people more relaxed, less stress, less traffic, better tips.
The people are looser, they're nicer, and you can see trouble.
How are the benefits?
Oh, no, man, it's not that kind of job.
You can see trouble better at night.
And there was the one guy who was really about being the best cab driver he could be. That was his Super Bowl. That was his Final Four. That was his championship game. And when I got in the car with him, he said, "Jamie, I'll tell you what, I love driving this cab. Oh, you see that? We almost caught one." I said, "What are you talking about?" Somebody kind of pulled out to the intersection. You got to watch out for those guys. Those guys will ruin this industry. And you were like, "Are you serious?" And when he broke it down, it made sense. That when people do get in my cab finally in LA, I want them to feel like that they had a great experience. We went through everything with Michael in order to get to Max. Here's all this information that I download and I sift from it with what I need. And then my thing was, I'm simply a cab driver. I'm simply this guy. There's nothing special to me at all. There's nothing exciting about my life. And so that was the thing. Strip all of it back. Just be the sitting on the dock of the bay in that cab. I'm not in this for the long haul. I'm just filling in. It's temporary while I'm getting some things shaped up. This is just temporary.
How long you been driving?
12 years.
Really?
Each actor works in a different way. There's no such thing as a method in a way, because every really great actor, Mark Ruffalo, Tom Cruise, and Jamie Foxx, they all work in completely different ways. Jamie's acquisition of character has to do with doing stand-up comedy.
Gotta represent, man. They looking at me like, "Come on, Fox."
Nothing to do with Stanislavski. It has to come with doing In Living Color. And so he uses mimicry as a means to get to a very truthful place.
Jamie can watch how you walk or watch how you speak for 5 minutes.
Shit happens. Gotta roll with it. Adapt. Darwin. I Ching.
And then he'll do exactly what I watched you do 5 minutes ago.
I said, "I think you should tell the guy behind me to put his gun away before I take it and beat his bitch ass to death with it."
That is really part of having that actor's eye, of being able to observe people.
You just see him getting in that character and bring that character to life.
We did a sequence outside of Club Fever where we set up some cars.
Right on action.
Michael Mann says, "Listen, I want you to drive the cab with Tom in the back with no seatbelt. Just drive along the side and scrape the cars and then pull out." Cool. Problem is that the Crown Victorias don't quite handle that well.
Go drive! Drive! Drive!
And I run head on into a Mercedes with Tom in the back, billions of dollars in the back, hit the car, wheel spin, car goes all the way up on the curb, bounces away from that, hits the other car. Tom is laughing in the back, man, we're having a great time. But when I get back, they run right past me. "Jamie, are you all right?" "No, I'm not." "Get out of the way so we can get to Tom."
Because he's a comedian, you have this preconceived idea that, this is a guy that thinks everything is silly and fun and da-da-da-da. There's a lot more to Jamie Foxx. I always like to just sit back and listen to him talk.
Dark pinstripe suit, elegant, not too flashy, that rules out advertising, plus a top drawer briefcase that you live out of. Anyway, a man gets in my cab with a sword, I figure he's a sushi chef.
We meet her in the beginning. She has to make an extremely strong impression on us because we're not going to see her again until very much later. A lot of who Jada is there in her eyes. When she looks up at Max, when he gives her this card, she looks up and her eyes open up, and it just melts me. And I don't know if it affects anybody else the same way, but it just gets me.
I gave it up. I gave up years ago, and I just do an all-nighter. And then after the first day, I'm off to the races.
Once we go back to that little, like what you do, you probably never really explain to anybody
Right.
the duality of I'm afraid and I can't wait to get in the ring.
I was really surprised at how thorough the auditioning process was, and I really enjoyed it. I was like, wow, that's what I'm talking about. He spent like an hour and a half with me and really worked me, which I feel should happen to squeeze out every bit of creative juice that an artist has. I mean, I don't know. We want to start an investigation of a Fortune 500 company or argue a cab route or something. I don't know, just in case.
Yeah.
He then had me go spend a day with a couple that he felt would be Annie's parents, right? So that I could understand the background that Annie comes from. And then I spent a couple of days with a prosecuting attorney and just watched how she handled herself in the courtroom, why she wears a skirt versus pants, how much makeup is she wearing, is this a woman who works out? U.S. Attorney's Office.
When you are with somebody who really does do this work in life, the answers you get aren't obvious. What kind of anticipatory anxiety do you have before you go into court the night before the first day? And this is a very, very, very tough lady who prosecutes big cases. And she says, well, I usually break down. I doubt myself. I will cry. And then I get myself together and prepare. And in the morning when it begins, I'm fine.
And then I pull myself together. I rewrite my opening statement, work my exhibits, and that's what I do for the rest of the night. That's my routine.
I don't care if you are a character that just says, stop. And that's it. That's your only line. He is going to give you the reason why you said stop, where you're coming from before you said stop, what the psychological background of this person is that would motivate this person to say stop.
You guys kind of amble forward right up into where I am. I would want to hear what's going on.
If you're going to work with Michael Mann, you have got to be on point, period.
We got any witnesses knocking on doors?
Stop. I got nothing. Too early. Okay. Too early.
I spent hours in training with the guns. I don't ever shoot my gun in this movie, but I'm a crack marksman now.
Sometimes people might think, well, that's going a little overboard. Me, as an actress, I know. This is what acting is supposed to be about.
No director knows how any other director works. So I've never really been on a set. I have no idea how anybody else makes a motion picture. I have a predetermined idea of the way the scene ought to be and the way this character ought to be manifesting himself in the scene. I'll see a picture or a photograph, or I'll be out in the middle of the night, and I'll see something, and I say, I've got to capture that. I'll have an emotional response to it. I'll feel that that emotion relates to this movie. So what's the world of the motion picture? I started thinking of it less as a cab as a drive-in movie, meaning that it's really what you're seeing out the windows. Where are we? What's going on outside? Refineries in Wilmington, Koreatown, the architecture, the freeways. LA's a unique city, and when it's humid, what happens is that all the sodium vapor streetlights in this megalopolis of 17 million people bounces up on the bottom of the cloud layer, and it becomes this diffused light. You see this wondrous abandoned landscape with hills and trees and strange lighting patterns. It's a very, very magical place, and I wanted that to be the world that Vincent and Max are moving in. So then how much of that do we see? And the answer is not a lot in film, and that's why I moved into shooting about 90% of the picture in high def to see into the night. I remember driving north on Fairfax and stopping for a light, and these three coyotes just walked diagonally across the intersection like they absolutely owned it. It wasn't just the presence of wild animals in the middle of the city, but their attitude of this is their domain.
That moment with the coyotes, I loved it in the script. It's one sentence, you know, in the Coyotes, and I thought, what is he gonna do with this? And then when you see that scene, that moment, it just had a poetry and a hypnotic quality.
First time in LA?
No. Tell you the truth, whenever I'm here, I can't wait to leave. It's too sprawled out, disconnected. You know, that's me. You like it?
It's my home.
Michael definitely knows LA. I mean, he took me places. Jamie and I, we'd be sitting in the car, you know, hanging out going, how did he find this place? You know, how did he get it? Where are we right now?
I told Mike, I said, man, but you know, I'm from the ghetto. You're not from the ghetto. I know the ghetto. You want me to show you some ghetto? And he would take you to places where even I was like, man, lock the doors, man. What is this?
The film, in some sense, is the beneficiary of many years of location scouting on different projects, and it was always with an eye to do one uniquely focused film in LA and tell a story that evokes some of the wildness, what lurks below the surface.
You see LA like you've never seen it before. Just the opening shot, when you look at that cab driving out and you see the big paintings on the walls, it's beautiful. He's interested in things like that and has a way to use it in a movie, and it can make it part of the story.
There's a lot of murals that we use in the picture, some of which we've actually copied from one place and moved to somewhere else to put it on a wall. So if you stop at a gas station, it's like a tienda, and it's got a whole wall full of murals of vegetables and everything that's sold on the inside. That is Los Angeles.
I share the same passion that Michael Mann does. He loves LA. We're shooting a lot in downtown Los Angeles. That is a reoccurring visual theme in the movie, is the downtown skyline.
What the hell?
The way Michael likes to work, he picks the perfect back alley, the perfect back of the building, the perfect entrance, and it's 10 different buildings, 10 different alleys, and it all merges and becomes seamless.
Oh no! Shit!
We drop a body on the car from about 3 stories up. It was done with a dummy that was wired into the car. And the effects crew did a fantastic job of rigging it so that the head has to hit the windshield in a certain spot and smash the windshield. We need to keep a car like that exactly as it was when we did the stunt from that moment on. We keep this car, which we affectionately call car number 3, as our hero car for that.
I'm pulling you over because your windshield's smashed.
I think they have 17 different cabs, and they're all sliced and diced different ways so they can make sure that he gets the shot.
It is true that we have 17 versions of our hero taxi, and all of these taxis, the insides are all identical. The entire inside is actually covered with a fabric that is a Velcro accepting fabric, and the whole car is wired so that the right key light exists. And this is the same stuff that's the backing in a cell phone, but it was custom built to be just the right color and temperature of light that our director of photography wanted. This can bend and be placed just about anywhere in the cab because of the Velcro throughout the cab. This is what we call cab number 9. We've obviously removed the motor, and it has a flat towing system here, and air suspension in the front and air suspension in the rear, so that when we place an entire camera crew and all the HD cameras and everything in the engine compartment, and it gives us the ability to shoot directly through the windshield and into the back of the taxi, getting the 2-shot where you'll see both Tom and Jamie. One of the things that's challenging about this show is obviously how do you move around and do interesting things within the taxi, which is why we built what we call the Pope-mobiles. They sort of picked up the name Pope-mobile because of the superstructure around them, reminiscent of the vehicle that Pope John Paul travels in. There are 3 Pope-mobiles, one for shooting from the passenger side, one for shooting from the driver's side, and one for shooting from the front.
It's a very, very important set to Michael, the cab, the logo of the cab, how the cab is lit inside, the colors of the cab.
There's a cab company here that has kind of those colors. It's kind of a strange lipstick orange. And what's strange about it is that the color, it takes one kind of a shade under sodium vapor light, which is very yellow, and it looks completely different under mercury vapor.
Michael wanted to have the orange taxi essentially get the sheen of almost a bluish lipstick. We probably painted 5 or 6 cars entire in an effort to get to it. We sort of drew a line down the middle and painted one half one color and one half another color. And then we probably painted nearly 50 2-foot by 2-foot square samples. And we would take those out on scouts and look at them in different environments, different lights.
In the end of the day, we got this one basic color, and then I put a clear coat on top of it, and we floated 5% blue in a clear coat, and the blue vibrated the orange a certain way, and I got what I was looking for.
Red light.
The movie, it's not an action story. It's a drama with realistic action that works for the story. That's what I liked about the car flip. You're doing it for an emotional reason.
Go fuck yourself.
We rehearsed that car flip. The way Michael saw it in his head was he wanted to go across the intersection in front of the Staples Center, hit into parked cars and turn over and get on its top. Most of them land back on their wheels. He wanted it upside down. So we went out and tested it. And that's exactly the way we shot it on the night.
I would change nothing. Everything that I would base everything on what we did, I would also, so I'd change nothing. If I want to board it,
and I get
If
with
you
Joel.
abort it, once we're about 50 feet from that, it's going to be kind of hard to abort.
So you can see where the lens hit it.
Wait, there should be one was coming right at us.
That camera went to Airflex 7.
Michael feels that for the reality of capturing the car as it was truly crashed, he wants to actually utilize the cars that were crashed for the rest of the scene post-car crash. It is a big challenge for us. Working with a car that's been through this kind of an accident is very difficult. The frames are bent, the roof is caved in, and a lot of modification has been made for safety. We're gonna install a full interior of the taxi, the divider, the seats, all the meters and equipment, as well as add a fair amount of structural support so that when we have Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx in there, it doesn't squash down on itself.
All right, guys, clear the background, please.
Okay, let's get some glass around here.
A little deeper in the set.
Go ahead. Ready, and bang, crash, action. Look for him, shoot, be careful, he may shoot you.
It was great because we were shooting in high def, so usually in film you have to stop after a few takes. That can be very difficult. Michael, he thinks like an actor. So he knows I want longer runs, and he's looking at the way that he shot it in the lighting so we could have long takes and just explore the scene.
That works for acting because instead of a 10-minute magazine, that it's always in the middle of a great take that you start running out of film and you have to interrupt the process. We just bang a 1-hour tape in and we could roll for 55 minutes.
Yeah, that hurts. That hurts because Michael Mann can take some takes. Because, you know, you wait on, we're out, tape rolled out.
Let's go again.
When you're working for Michael Mann, you're like, I want to go in there and kick ass tonight, you know, and really do a great job and show Michael what a professional I am, and, you know, I really know my stuff.
Ready and action. Action, doing action.
You're 75 takes into, you know, 2-page scene on a phone by yourself, and you start going crazy, you know, you lose your shit.
We are waiting on that thumb. You know how he does that little, when he does that, let's move on. If you don't get that, it's like, oh man, we waiting on the thumbs, we've been here all night. Can we get a thumb? And once he does this, then everything is cool.
Cut.
He winds out any preconceived idea of what you think a scene should sound like, look like, be acted like, until all you have left is just what is sort of happening in the moment.
Come on!
By the end of it, it was pretty raw and pretty immediate. It was just connected to what was going on in the scene, and no thought or performance.
You are forced to go to the truth.
If I walk out of here tonight, I will go so far away, it'll be just like I was dead.
Go back to if I walk out of here.
I'm gonna give you my word.
And then you don't have a fucking choice. That's more the attitude than you're truly sorry, okay?
Okay.
He has a way to just strip the actor away and get to the truth of the material.
Just take that again and just say, hell, make it 30. Give some more of it. Yeah,
you know what?
Doing it over and over again is giving a lot of room in that performance to choose 50 great moments.
Hell, make it 35.
As opposed to just 2 great moments.
And cut. Cut.
Everybody knows that Michael Mann, it's like a school in a sense. Oh, you got accepted. You got in. Oh, you going to Michael Mann University? Wow, yeah, what type of grade did you get? It makes you go home and get your homework done. And then you feel like every single day you pass the test.
When all these executives are home sleeping or partying or doing whatever the fuck they do, they know in the back of their mind that Michael Mann is working.
It's gonna be great. You want me to drive on?
We ended at 9 o'clock this morning. Good, he's like, I want to keep shooting. And this was after, I don't know, he's probably been working 18 hours at that point.
Ready, and 3, 2, 1.
Oh man, he fell on the pad. Shit, I think he's dead.
Good guess.
You killed him?
No, I shot him. Bullets in the fall killed him. Max, 6 billion people on the planet, you're getting bent out of shape because of one fat guy.
There's a glib nihilism about this dark character.
Oh, shit!
Okay, it's only a dead guy.
Max is raising issues that actually resonate with parts of Vincent's life that the text doesn't deal with, but Tom and I understand. So sometimes we would have to take many takes to get that extra nuance, that there's an additional reaction there. And that additional reaction may be designed to pose a question, which is going to get answered later, like, what's going on with this guy? There are hints of it that start to show up, and it has to do with a line he delivers, and we don't know if he's being troll or if he's being sincere. They go to see Max's mother, and Vincent says, buy her flowers. And Max doesn't want to buy his mother flowers. And Vincent looks at him and says with a totally straight face,
She carried you in her womb for 9 months.
what did that mean? And you find out later that it meant something.
Been calling and calling.
Yeah, well, I got caught up at work.
Why couldn't you call me on the telephone?
He's bored in Max's mother's hospital room until she compliments him.
You paid for my flowers? They're beautiful.
And it almost becomes as if there's a budding sibling rivalry between Vincent and Max for the affections of Max's mother.
I'm very happy to meet you, Mrs. DeRocher.
Oh, just call me Ida.
Hey, Ida. Max?
Leave me alone, I'm coming. Here's this guy who's a killer. Here's this guy who's just driving a cab for 12 years. And they come together, and all of a sudden, it's like a spike in a railroad right here in this point where things are going to change this night.
Why doesn't he kill Max? You know, you see this relationship and this bond. Even Vincent cannot articulate the effect that Max has had on him. You know, seeing his mother, seeing the family that he never had.
Let's see what else you can do.
He's falling apart in the movie, really. Where does that crack happen? Where is that moment of, I've just done something wrong, and then trying to push it away? It really happens at the end of that jazz club.
There's something disrupting this man. There's tectonic plates that are shifting deep down in the core of this person because it's the depth of feeling of Vincent's past that starts to come out, and it's happening tonight.
He holds Daniel's head, and you can feel a little bit that at this point he really feels some sort of compassion for this guy, but tries to hide it. comes back to his persona, to his cold-blooded killer. Some other directors, they don't even speak to you about emotion. But Michael goes like, here, I want you to show that he's going through this very deep memory, and suddenly he's changing. So I have to think of the music very emotionally, very dramatically.
One of the most just purely enjoyable voyages you go on, for me, is to find what the music's voice is. I love working with orchestras, particularly if you can get an orchestra to sound not the way orchestras conventionally sound. It works for me when I feel that's Vincent. I'm hearing something musically and it's Vincent.
The climax of the movie, which normally would take 4 to 7 minutes, is expanded to take more like 17 to 20 minutes. And our big objective was to not reach our dramatic climax too early. Michael was very clear about the ending taking place in 3 movements.
Put your hands on top of your head.
The end begins when Max realizes that Vincent's last victim is Annie.
1L20, I need a backup on a 187 suspect.
We call it the race to Warren. The immediate temptation was to go all out right there, when in fact what we really had to do was save our largest amount of energy for 5 or 6 minutes later. The second section being what is referred to as the cat and mouse, when Vincent is actually in the law library looking for her and she's crawling on the floor. I took all the percussion out and really wanted to feel like it was a suspended moment, like time just stood still. You see LA at night over Tom's shoulder with helicopters circling, and these glass partitions sort of refracting the light and creating all these halos and these strange sort of color schemes around the whole scene. So I was trying to choreograph the music to these very opaque and impressionistic visuals. At the same time, creating a huge amount of tension, because it's obviously a very tense moment. And the last act is the race to get on the train, and then all hell does break loose. We were extremely overt at that point, as my scoring specifically what's happening.
The film, particularly through the last third of it, is very much a cascade. James Newton Howard used percussion in a really interesting way and just maintained a certain relentless energy as one event cascades into another.
I do this for a living!
Vincent finds himself in the presence of a real adversary in the form of this bumbling cab driver who's never fired a handgun in his life because Max has seen into Vincent.
What's with you?
As in?
The standard parts that are supposed to be there when people in you are.
He has truly seen Vincent for who Vincent is. During this night, during this very edgy kind of slice through LA, the totality of Max's experience, who he is and who he has been as a man, and the totality of who Vincent is, come into a conflict from which neither man will ever be the same again. And this one night, everything is changing. I have a certain idea of what I want to capture, and it's probably a certain mood, a certain feeling of LA that's representative of the whole, but in fact is also highly selective. I find LA the most fascinating of contemporary American cities. There's a certain sense of heightened expression in the architecture, and there's almost a patina of wear over everything. So that's what I was looking for. I was looking for that used landscape of dreams from a different era.